So, new log, new stream. I think I'm making a VOD as well, so if anybody actually watches my VODs, I think I get some views, so that's kind of chill. Like, hashtag likeable, hopefully. Hashtag popular, hopefully. Dateable, skatable, relatable, hateable, question mark. So, I'm just gonna play Street Fighter for like, I don't know, like 27 minutes or something like that. And I'm just gonna see what's good. You know, hopefully I can create some content and can enjoy it later. And if anybody wants to chat, that's chill. I got my phone here. Sometimes I use my laptop on the side for chat, but I'm just having a quick sesh. This is only a level 4 bot as well, so I'm just like kind of wanting to put time into the engine. So to like improve at it, and just like maybe I'll change the difficulty later. Maybe learning about the engine, like I have been thinking, like is a good idea. Like I heard that probably ChatGPT or whatever I read. Yeah, also in terms of voice chat with ChatGPT, like kind of I feel like what I heard was maybe reasonable, like in terms of Diego saying that like you want to. Or maybe it wasn't even, maybe he was like part of the conversation, like in terms of thinking about fighting games and excelling it, and you want to think in terms of engines rather than like trips or what's more specifically like, I don't know, like in terms of the fighting game community, you talk about things and all that. I just feel like, you know, you can get more scientifically involved than just that concept alone. You can probably theorize at a philosophical level in terms of like computation and like how to leverage computation and input devices and like think about game inputs even and like what a game is and even the gravity of concepts as well, even on some metaphysical level, like what is the nature of a conscious being interacting with something like a game where it's phenomenologically in existence as well and is subject to the same conditions too. So it's kind of interesting like that. It's like that notion, like, you know, like, is your favorite game character or your favorite fictional character, like, do they have a kind of like a conscious experience in terms of like the requisites for having a conscious existence? What exactly is that, like, you know? And I feel like consciousness is probably a part of it, and like having a runtime environment too, like the tree falling in the woods, like if someone can perceive the tree, it's got a runtime in terms of their brain, that being a platform, computational platform. So it's kind of like, maybe you can reason about things by making real safe extrapolations that are logically sound, you know, and then it becomes a kind of act of listening to what exists in terms of truthiness, things that exist in reality. Fundamentally, they have like forces, you know, fields, gravity, and objecthood, I guess, in terms of physicality. So it's kind of like, if you liken everything to an acoustic percussive vibration, which energetically this is suggestive of that, like the data are suggestive of vibratory, auditory, and percussion to the beinghood. And like, you know, it's pretty chill in this equation to use words like vibes. Like in this equation, then all objects, all things, everything that exists gives off like vibes, like, you know. So I don't know. It makes me want to talk about what I was talking about earlier in terms of magnetic overlay. Like in terms of every game, like this is a fighting game, you know. Like Ki is a concept in martial arts. And so it's like, imagine everybody has a bio-electromagnetic field, which, you know, the scientific literature is supportive of. Then imagine, like, what I was saying, like, all the objects have vibes. If that's true, then imagine all the overlaying auras, you know, like, say everything's emanating an aura, an energetic field, and it's kind of like a radiating sun. And like vibrationally, imagine all the rays of light emanating from that sun, like all the photon beams, and like all the inferencing and overlays that may be able to happen. So just to use a simple example, it's like, imagine there's like a pond of water, like just there, or like a long fat basin of water. You're maybe gonna like put tadpoles in or something, like software tadpoles or something. Then like, imagine just like tapping in different places of the pond, and then the rippling inferencing, like the ripples overlaying and creating rippling effects. So imagine that in 3D with like a high dimensionality with so many different objects emanating 3D ripples, kind of like emanating. And so you'd get some pretty interesting configurations. When you think about space and how far photons travel, you know, it's kind of interesting to think that maybe something like pocket dimensions can exist, and like that can exist by different emanation waves overlapping and overlaying in 3 dimensions in a very complex way, given the nature of reality in terms of complexity. So I feel like that may actually give rise to things like pocket dimensions, you know, like magnetically trapping things in a kind of cavern type way. You know, like you can imagine like some configuration only like leaving a pocket of air, say, where you can maybe, you know, inject consciousness into in terms of astral traveling into a space and a place. So that's kind of interesting in a very relevant way. I feel like psychedelics and philosophy is always so relevant. And I feel like informationally it's pretty likely that we can learn more about the universe by learning more about what is possible with our brains and what exactly is going on when we're enjoying psychedelics, or when I'm enjoying psychedelics, you know, when intellectuals are enjoying psychedelics and they experience interesting things that lead them to believe in interesting philosophical, I guess, like plausible predicates, you know, as scientists, as intellectuals. So I feel like fundamentally it may be a good idea to get a study psychedelics outside of the clinical therapeutic setting, which is really sterile, you know? It's not groovy parties at my house with heaps of chicks that I really like being around and heaps of my mates who I really like being around as well, you know? For example. And like maybe the CC chicks, I might know some of them, you know? As well. Among other things that you can do, like, you know, they have names around and shit,
Ryu wins!
Level 4 bot, lol.
Round 1. Fight! Round 2. Fight!
Oh yeah, I'm probably gonna upload this recording and VOD to my YouTube. I guess it's a VOD as well. Like outside of Twitch, it's a VOD. I guess it's kind of like a cyber product, like how you market it. So yeah, I also am recording a local copy of this, so I'm gonna add it to YouTube on YouTube. And I'm uploading this VOD on Twitch as well, which is chill, plus like infrastructure and automation, plus leveraging IT assets strategically. Additionally, as well.
Round 1. Fight! Round 2.
So in terms of learning this fighting game, I want to learn fat combo strings like this from learning the engine organically. So basically, I have a theory, like if I spend enough time theorizing about this game, like my theories are gonna improve. You know, I'm gonna learn about the system by actively testing and like iterating in terms of analyzing and testing and theorizing, like hypothesizing and testing. So, you know, and also I feel like that happens naturally when humans are having fun. So it's kind of like that notion. Like Conor McGregor apparently said that, like, not verbatim, but he said like you can be great at anything as a human, like just base rate human rates. Like if you put time and effort into it over time, you'll like be pretty great. And it's just kind of like, that's kind of like a chill way to look at things. I feel like as a human,
another mission awaits.
you can invest, and as a business person, you can profit. You know, it's like, yeah.
No mercy for you.
Round one. Fight.
That Blanca costume, bro. The mascot, bro. So Namco, bro. Nah, I don't even know. In terms of Virtua Fighter, the new Virtua Fighter, I'm pretty down to play that. Like, I don't know, it'll probably be pretty good. I don't know. I think there's like kind of like realistic vibes a little bit, but like so overpowered as well. Like super fighting techniques and stuff.
Real wins.
I don't know, I sure don't know.
Round one. Fight. Round two. Fight.
You're in my way.
In terms of like high performance and anything, I feel like it's true, like maybe with the NLP notion, like with the right strategies, you as a human can accomplish what the greats have in their field or like in that particular domain or area or what have you, you know, at that game or like at that sport or in that subject or like in that profession, you know. So I feel like my this like kind of theory or like what I think about high performance, as long as I'm being sensible, as long as I'm reasoning about things in actuality, like that's what I'm doing with reasoning, it's probably pretty good, you know, like as a human, like as a thinker, as a reasoner, as somebody who is interested in reasoning, probably you can reason pretty well, like to a certain extent. And so, I don't know, in terms of a certain extent, it's kind of like maybe that's what is important with high performance, like, well, what extent is it, like, the extent of your reasoning, is that like why academia and like universities are still around, you know, like academies, like training and rigor? I don't know, like put in the time and reap the rewards. It makes me think of like training, and I guess like martial arts training as well as like training for sport, or just like the optimal way to train. And it's like, what is that? And there's a whole on a person by person basis is there. And like if you think about like mastered full teachers who have taught some of the greatest fighters ever, for example, it's like, well, maybe they have a kind of set way of doing things, and like probably it's not the only way of doing things either. So it's kind of like, I don't know, even personality comes into it, and that's got me thinking about that biomagnetic aura thing that I was talking about earlier, as well as morphic resonance, like Rupert Sheldrake's theory, which is just kind of like forms persist over time and energetically things perpetuate due to kind of like movement that is associated with their being in physicality, in physical reality, in terms of physicality, in their physicality as beings. Yeah. So I don't know, I feel like fundamentally ascertaining things about reality that have not already been ascertained, essentially, is kind of what people naturally do anyway when they're deciding things for themselves. In the same way that having fun while playing games is like maybe the optimal way to learn. Because when you think about learning a system like Black Desert, for example, it's like there's a lot of crafting in that game and stuff. If you're not even interested in like, you know, what do you call it, turning over a stone or whatever? Like, if you're not interested in searching and finding out information because you're like wanting to have fun with something, as opposed to like doing it because somebody's like fucking paying you like just enough money to buy a box or some shit, you know? You know, if you're doing it because you're like wanting to have fun and that's why you're investing and researching, that's so much more aligned with wealthiness. That's probably like rich behavior, like I feel like.
Round 2. Fight.
In terms of like, you know, differences like I was talking about, like with personalities and stuff, I feel like maybe even like the relationships like in a person's life and like just like how they train as well, like what actually they do when they actually do training, and like maybe determined by their personality in a magnetic kind of way. Like if you think about the neurophysiological correlates of personality, it's kind of like, well, maybe that is like a very physical kind of existence in a morphic resonance sense. So maybe that behavior leads to, I guess, attracting, you know, like attracting is a word, so it leads to attracting relationships and events, as well as like probably repeated resonance as well, and that's probably like aligned with the nature maybe of the kind of way of the like magnetic overlap land, so to speak, of where the person, you know, finds themselves at any given moment in time when they're making a decision as a being, like, in terms of this being busy. And like if you think about it, taking an action, making a decision, like making a choice, it's like a form of business, you know? There's a physicality involved, and like homophobic resonance is kind of like suggestive of it. And I have a metaphysical theory, or like my understanding of how things work, you know, so to speak, is like, when you think about currency, and like just in terms of like, imagine like I instantiated a new virtual galaxy, and nothing in there but blank space, and I say I spawn like 500 photons, and like, for some reason, these photons in this dynamic system have like particle physics and just grouping naturally happens. And so imagine like naturally kind of we can reason about things as being, so like we can think about social behavior, and like imagine you just started a new school or something, and like naturally groups form up, you know, like social groups, different social groups given their placement and trajectory through that school over time as students all the way through towards being alumnus, hopefully. And so it's like as the courses of their trajectories unfold, it's like, I guess just to, because I'm thinking pretty abstractly here, so I'll just keep talking. I don't need to ask. I guess the choices you make are going to be like aligned with your mind at any given point in time. So you're going to be making decisions, and your physiological state is going to be determining how you relate to things all the time. So I don't know, I guess just to like relate it back to high performance, like in such a situation, for high performance you want to be engaging in ways that are rich, you know, like in the way I was talking about before, like studying something out of genuine intellectual curiosity and engaging with that subject material. It's like something you actually want to do, and something you naturally may do over time anyways. So in terms of like naturally studying subjects, like people like naturally do study things, you know, and in terms of professions and like who you are as a person, I feel like, you know, people just like kind of gravitate towards things in a way that's kind of like a longboarding around on like relatively flat land, like with some curvature and some like contours in the concrete. And so it's like the paths that person takes is probably going to be like aligned with how they feel physiologically at the time. And like, I guess to relate it to what I was saying, it's kind of like when it becomes an act of kind of listening, you know, like listening to your body and listening to maybe literally the percussive auditory vibration of like things. You know, what you're kind of doing is like when you're perceiving and when you're thinking, you're already processing all this just by existing, like implicitly, complicitly, consistently, perpetually, continuously, energetically, you know, as it costs, like, you know, energy, you have to eat food, you have to sleep, apparently, like, do you that? In terms of perpetuating, I'm gonna probably end this soon, so I'll just wrap things up, like, in terms of growing wealthier, let's say, I feel like you want to be making decisions, and I feel like you want to be naturally, like, I don't know, like in terms of birds of a feather flocking together, I feel like it does make sense that people gravitate towards, I guess, good business, you know, like if you think about what I was saying before, how business is always kind of like a constant in terms of just being alive. I feel like providing that's the case, you can probably grow wealthier by really just being honest with yourself and figuring out what you genuinely care about and what you actually want to engage with honestly. And if you like have kinds of like inhibitions around exploring that, you know, even just a simple document, like a Word document, you process the document, just like start with like 5 things you like generally, and then for each one write 3 words like what associated with like why you like those things, and then just have a look at that, and then like, you know, set like a handful of goals and put them in a file and look at that file, like contextualize it as being important in your life, like place significance on it, talk about your goals, like research things you're interested in. You know, it makes sense to set goals for things that you genuinely want to improve at or like attain or experience in there. And honesty is the best policy because it's your life you want to live, you know. Anyways, I'm gonna probably end that here, end that there. Yeah. Peace.